All welcome to the Week 5 recap edition of the Lewis and Laraib podcast, coming at you on this Wednesday morning. Excited to be here with y'all. Great week of football. However, we first want to address prayers up to Dak Prescott and his family. Absolutely devastating injury on Sunday. You know, as much as people love to dog on Cowboys and Cowboys fans, no one wants to see that. He's such a great human being. Everything he's doing, outside of football and what he does for his football team, absolutely devastating loss.
Yeah, wishing him a quick recovery from his devastating injury. Such a great guy, great leader for the Cowboys team. You know, a lot of people hate on the Cowboys or meme about them here and there on, Instagram or Twitter or whatever. But, very sad loss for the Cowboys.
Yeah, definitely. And just like, all everything aside, what he's done off the field, like I said, with just like all the mental health things, dealing with his brother's death this off season, and how he's really handled himself. I really, really hope that the Cowboys can, get something done with him long term to where, like, because we understand, like, no one really wants to talk about the finances of the situation right now, but in a situation like this where he was placed on a franchise tag and sort of a prove it year, and he was on pace to break so many records for this season, the way that offense was moving with him. Yeah, they weren't, winning a lot of those games, but he is definitely a franchise quarterback and he deserves that money.
Yeah, most definitely. But let's move on to our picks of the week that we had. So let me share my screen. I finally go out there and get my first win. Looking at my picks, I think it all came down to the Cleveland Indianapolis game. We both hit on our locks. We both missed on our upsets, and it just came down to this game. And just like in week 2, when Philip Rivers, gave me the middle finger, he just gave it to you this week.
Never bet on the Colts in a big spot or you're going to get shot. That's my new saying. Big spot, gonna get shot. I cannot trust Philip Rivers. The Rivers are dried up in Indianapolis. Frank Reich was asked in an interview this week, "Hey, do you think maybe you could put Jacoby in and how he would do in that offense?" And then Frank Reich was just immediately, "Philip Rivers is our quarterback," and that was it. And that really made me upset.
Yeah, no. So this brings me just one step closer. So now it's you're up by only one, and we've
Two to
tied
one.
we've tied two. So it's gonna be another big pivotal week 6 pick 'em to see if I can tie it up, or if you're gonna take another 2-0 lead, or maybe we can just tie this week. But
It creates more distance. You're scaring me. Someone else did your picks.
no, they did not.
All right. So for you today, we have a whole new segment called Cap or No Cap for the people out there who have no idea what that means. Cap means you are totally you're totally misunderstood and mistaken. Your point is completely off. But no cap means, you know what, you're on to something. There's some truth to that. I believe that. So we're gonna give you some big statements and we're gonna go back and forth saying if it's cap or no cap. So Laraib, will you start us off with this segment?
Yeah, so Lewis, I ask you, cap or no cap, the Cowboys do not win the NFC East.
Oh, you know what? If I had a cap, I would put it on right there because that is such cap. Listen, the defense is the biggest concern on this team. Giving up 34 points on Sunday to a Giants team, which frankly had no point scoring over 20 points in any game, which they have not done this entire season until they dropped 34 against the Cowboys. There are massive concerns, things that, they lose Tristan Hill this last week to injury. He's going to be gone the entire season, defensive tackle there. But they expect to get Leighton and Van Der Esch back sometime this season, along with Sean Lee. So that's two really big linebacking pieces that are definitely going to help out in the run game, which they've really been gashed in the past few weeks. But also, I have enough trust in this offense to keep them in games late. And in this division where they are number one in the division, even though they're sitting at a record of 2-3, and they've only played one divisional opponent in the New York Giants so far. So they still have to play Redskins twice, Eagles twice, and the Giants again. So if they can somehow come out of that with 4 wins and then just beat up on the other like smaller teams, they still have teams like the Jets to play and some teams that they can definitely get at least 2, maybe 3 wins outside of division. Just give it on the just any given Sunday type of deal. I need to see improvement from this defense, though. I don't think they get past the first round. We could have a whole nother conversation whether or not a team from the NFC East should even be in the playoffs if they have a record of 7-9 or, in the Eagles' case, 6-9-1. But no, I really think like Andy Dalton as a quarterback, and he's made the playoffs. He's been a successful quarterback. He has experience at the position. He hasn't done it in a while. People may forget about his days in Cincinnati, but this is a lot of the same.
Yeah, how many
And
playoff wins did you have in Cincinnati?
hey, they had a 13-win season in Cincinnati once upon a time, but unfortunately for them, he had Marvin Lewis as a head coach, so that's not going to end well. And if Vontaze Burfict doesn't take off Antonio Brown's head, then they won a damn playoff game. But regardless, Andy Dalton with weapons, we saw him with A.J. Green back in the day. He definitely has a lot to work with. And I feel like this team's going to go back to a run-heavy offense, feeding Zeke a lot more and chewing a lot of clock more than they did with the air raid offense with Dak Prescott at the helm. So keeping their defense off the field with longer drives by the offense. And if Andy Dalton can just do enough, game manage, and just feed those receivers on the outside, that's a recipe for winning a game. So I still think the Cowboys are going to win this division.
And I'm going to say no cap on my original statement. Cowboys do not win the NFC East. Can you give me a quick history lesson? Who had the number 1 overall pick this year or last year in the draft?
The Cincinnati Bengals.
And who was their quarterback?
I think it was Andy Dalton. I'm not sure though.
Oh yeah, it was Andy Dalton. You don't have to. No, it was Andy Dalton, and now he plays for the Cowboys. And I'll give it to you, Andy Dalton. I mean, he didn't have that much around him in Cincinnati. Deteriorating offensive line. AJ Green a little bit, late in his career. Joe Mixon, he was a bright spot, but he just couldn't get anything going behind that. Not that good of an offensive line. But, I don't think this Cowboys team can keep up with the Eagles. That defense that the Eagles have, they're going to find a way to stop Andy Dalton. If you just stack the box and don't let Zeke run all over you and you put the ball into Andy Dalton's hands and make him have to make a play, then I don't think he can do, even half of what Dak Prescott has been doing this season. And there's just no way that this Cowboys team will be able to do anything against the Eagles front seven. And then on the other side, that defense, you said they're coming back with some key players in Sean Lee and Leighton Vander Esch. But besides that, that secondary has been the real problem, giving up, almost 400 passing yards every game to every single quarterback, except for Daniel Jones. But, I mean, it's Daniel Jones. But Carson Wentz, he's a little bit better than Daniel Jones. And then Miles Sanders, he's really good too. Cowboys giving up 155 rushing yards a game as well. So, both sides, if you have Andy Dalton at quarterback, can he keep up with anyone in this league when his defense is giving up 30 points a game?
Even how bad the defense for the Cowboys may be, when Carson Wentz is throwing it on the ground for you to pick it up and give it back to your offense, you're in a prime position as the Eagles are top 5 in the league in turnovers through the first 5 weeks of the NFL. And Carson Wentz has been playing particularly bad in situations against some, not the greatest defenses. He's had a few bounce back games against the 49ers and Steelers, still lost against the Steelers though. Tied a game to the Bengals, which is just, what are you doing? So, I mean, I don't really trust this Philadelphia Eagles team. I don't think they're getting, you're saying they're going to get help on the offensive front. And Not really. I mean, they're getting receivers back, but if the messenger, if the quarterback can't get the ball to the receivers consistently, well, what's good for that? I like the talent on this Dallas team is enough for me to believe that they can finish through with the division games against the Bengals um and such like that. I still think they're gonna have a chance to come back and literally if they can get 4 more wins, be 6-9. I like them to win the division, and if whoever can get to 7 wins in this division, I think gets it. And looking at the schedules here, I mean, the Cowboys' road is not all that difficult going forward. Um, they have a pretty easy path for the next few games, so they can sort of try to right the ship. They have the Cardinals on Monday night. Then they go to Washington to play the football team, and then we have the big showdown at Philadelphia. And then they have Steelers, Vikings, Washington. And if that in that 6-game stretch, if you can go 3-3, 4-2, that's huge.
And if you can't, I mean, I will give it to you. The Eagles do have a pretty rough schedule. They play the Ravens, and then it kind of eases up a little bit. They play the Giants twice, and then the Cowboys. But then they have to play the Browns, Seahawks, and Packers and Saints, all in 3-game stretch coming up in the back half of November. So maybe because of just how easy their schedule is, the Cowboys eke in. But I just trust Carson Wentz a lot more than I do Andy Dalton. Maybe he can game manage a little bit. Maybe he can dink and Dak how Dak used to be for this Cowboys team. Maybe they can get a couple wins. But I'm still sticking with my guns. I think the Eagles, they can pull out this division just like last year.
All right, so we will disagree on that front. The NFC least, whoever makes it through into the playoffs is not going to get a fun game in the first round. But now we're going to move on to my cap or no cap. So, Laraib, in your division, the NFC West, there's a lot of good teams, but I'm saying only 2 teams will make the playoffs from the NFC West. Is that cap or no cap?
That is no cap. Originally, you and I were both talking about it. The Seahawks look great. Rams have done all right, even though their only wins have come against the NFC East. But the Cardinals, they start off 2-0, and they dropped their last 2, and they finally beat, a broken-down Jets team. And then San Francisco, very surprising loss to the Dolphins over the weekend. Both of those teams, the Cardinals and the San Francisco 49ers, do not look very good right now. San Francisco, with Jimmy Garoppolo, lose by almost 30 at home against Ryan Fitzpatrick and the Dolphins. And the Cardinals, they signed Kenyon Drake. They got DeAndre Hopkins, but that offense, it still looked very one-dimensional. They couldn't really run the ball with Kenyon Drake at all. Chase Edmonds, he's looked like a very nice backup. But in both of these teams, they're missing a lot of key players. Cardinal Jones, you were telling me just before the podcast started, he tore his bicep. He tore his bicep, and he's out for the season. And then the 49ers, Nick Bosa, he tore his ACL. He's out for the season. So both these teams, they're dealing with the injury plague right now, and their offenses just haven't been able to click as well as I thought they would so far this season.
Yeah, I mean, earlier in the season when we were all talking about the NFC West as the NFC best and the NFC East as the NFC least, it was a lot because of they played each other. And you could definitely see a huge gap in talent between the 2 divisions. The Rams I'm saying the Seahawks and Rams are the 2 teams that are starting to pull away, but the Rams have only 4 wins against the NFC East. They just, they're the NFC East champions right now. So they could potentially fall off with their only game, not playing the NFC East. They lost to the Buffalo Bills. Big concerns for me, as you said, we saw the 49ers look like, they were the best team in the league, coming and just destroying the Giants and the Jets. But frankly, they just took care of business. And then they come home, have a really tough game against the Eagles. It seemed like, we'll give them a pass for that one because the Eagles were like just desperate. They needed a win in that situation. And the 49ers knew they were getting Jimmy Garoppolo back in the next week. So they weren't really, I mean, of course you want to win every single game, but that wasn't a game that they were necessarily as desperate to win like the Eagles were in that situation. But then you have another week. You stay home, and then a team in Miami comes all the way from the East Coast, travels all the way for a 3 o'clock game, and absolutely embarrasses the NFC champions from last year. Oh, like 47 points on this defense. Granted, there's problems there. And we can't just say because of injury. I mean, you lose Nick Bosa and Solomon Thomas. You traded away DeForest Buckner. I don't know where the direction of this team is going. There's really big issues at the quarterback position with them, with uncertainty with Garoppolo. I think they pulled Garoppolo from that game just because they said the ankle thing, but
He
if he
was
looks
playing
good,
very bad. He was playing very bad. Two
right? And
interceptions, couldn't really get the ball moving. We talked about this 49ers team about how great they were last year. They kind of reminded me of what the Ravens were, right? A very solid defense that can just, stop opponents, get turnovers, and then a great run game where you just pound the rock, take the air out of the ball, and then you don't give your opponents a score or a chance to score. But with Jimmy Garoppolo, they needed him to, check down the ball, give it to Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel in space, give it to the playmakers, George Kittle, give it to them in space so they can go and make some plays, get some first downs. But he just couldn't get anything going against the Dolphins on Sunday.
yeah, I still have faith in Mike Shanahan or Kyle Shanahan, excuse me, and his offensive philosophy of running the ball. This offensive line does not look the same as it did last year. There's a lot of holes coming through on the right side of the ball. They're not really missing anyone. I think it's just like, Super Bowl fatigue. You're coming off of a really tough season all the way through quarantine. You're probably, you're a little happy with yourself, not training the way you should be, and the offensive line really is looking like it's having struggles. So the 49ers scare me. And oh man, their schedule coming up is not a easy schedule to rebound from whatsoever, as they have teams such as let's see, let me pull it up real quick. Yeah,
Well,
so they're
they still
they're
have to
next.
play the whole NFC East as well, so that's another free 4 wins for them.
Right, but they already played the Eagles and the Giants, so those are two cupcakes. You should beat the Eagles, so losing to them just by itself is an indictment. But here are your next 7 games: Rams, Patriots, Seahawks, Packers, Saints, Rams again, and then the Bills. Which one of those games are they going to be favored in?
Quick thing to note is those are all great games, and guess how many of them are going to be on national television in prime time?
I'm looking at least 3.
Okay. Oh, I mean, I was about to say, a lot of the games so far this season in prime time haven't been as good. You look at the NBA on Friday night; they always have the great games on ESPN. Meanwhile, the NFL, we're watching, beat up 49ers team going against Carson Wentz and Travis Fulgham on NBC Sunday Night Football. So I wish the NFL, just quick little insertion right here, the NFL would make their primetimes games just, a little bit better. A lot of great games every single week, a great matchups, either playoff previews or, rivalries that they've had in the past couple years in the playoffs. But I wish the NFL would do just a little bit better on the game scheduling in prime time.
Hey, so far Tuesday Night Football has been a hit.
Oh,
Those
yeah.
are right there. So maybe we need some more Tuesday Night Football games. So, but yeah, I agree with you for that. But getting back to this division, like I said, the 49ers seem like, if they can get through this stretch with a positive record, then they absolutely deserve to make the playoffs and deserve to be in a leading position to get in. But it's looking very rough for them. Do they go 2-7, 2-9 going into their bye week after that? So it's going to be a tough sledding for the San Francisco 49ers. And as for the Cardinals, I mean, I haven't really been impressed with their offense since the first 2 weeks. It seemed like they were gangbusters, catching everyone by surprise. Cliff Kingsbury with his genius offense, but like you talked about, the rushing game for this team. I mean, your leading rusher, Kenyon Drake, only has 18 more total yards than your quarterback, but he's also had over 45 more carries than the quarterback. So you need to figure out what your best option is, moving the ball. Kenyon Drake has not been that effective so far. You need to figure out ways to scheme him up and to make this offense more versatile. Cliff Kingsbury offense is very predicated on using the passing game as an extension of the running game, sort of like, quick routes, wide receiver screens, quick slants, stuff like that. But teams can easily scheme up on that. And if you don't have the chemistry, quarterback and receiver that you need necessary for that, like if I was to say like Michael Thomas for the Saints, for instance, is an extension of the running game, because you're getting at least, 6 quick slants, wide receiver screens, hitch routes. That's going to get you 5-6 yards every game. But I just don't think Kyler Murray in this offense really has the chemistry yet. And I don't know if Cliff Kingsbury knows how to scheme it up the way Sean Payton can, and if they have the talent to do it regardless. But, their offensive line needs to play better. That's the reason why they have to do a lot of the quick game stuff. And there's questions about Kyler Murray at quarterback. I mean, he's done a lot of great things this season. I think his ability outside of the pocket has really impressed me with what he can do, and his arm is just extremely talented. But I mean, the height thing, it's real. There's.
I wouldn't go. I wouldn't
I
say it's more at the height than the play calling. They have the playmakers to do everything they want. They got DeAndre Hopkins. They have Christian Kirk, Andy Isabel, a lot of fast players. With that break in 4.4, 4.3 speed that can just run down the sideline. They have everything they need, but just Cliff Kingsbury, he needs to just put it all together for this offense, because that defense, if they ever get into a shootout, I don't think their defense can ever can ever hold an opponent down. And then the offense, you can never run the ball to take to milk the clock. That's how the Jets got a couple of free touchdowns on Sunday. But Kyler Murray, I like what he's been doing so far, but he just needs to bring it up to the next level.
Yeah, all I'm saying is I don't think this is the Cardinals' year. If they make the playoffs, that's great for them. That's really good progress for their future. If they don't and they barely miss out, I think that's fine. You're going to learn a lot from your team this season. I think you need to find a way to get Kenyon Drake more involved after paying him in the offseason, and just how important the running game is to all the top teams in the NFL so far. It's huge. So you need to find a way to work off of the run and then get Kyler Murray out of the pocket on play action passes and find those deep balls that you were talking about. So that's all going to come with time and chemistry and him just building anticipation on throws, because the height's a thing, but you've seen quarterbacks, Russell Wilson, Drew Brees, overcome that just from game experience and knowing where receivers are going to be before they even get there, throwing to open space rather than trying to guess where a tight window is and potentially making a mistake. But, I like the future of this team. I like the pieces they have. It's just about it all clicking in the end.
Yep. So my next cap or no cap to you is the Raiders make the playoffs.
This is a tough one for me because I like what this Raiders team has done so far this season. They beat, the Chiefs last week. They beat the Saints. So they definitely have talent on this team. However, I'm saying, unfortunately for Raider Nation, that this is cap. Here's why. Let's just look at the conference in general. So you're going to get your 4 division champions. I think it's a lock. You're going to get at least 2 from the AFC North, potentially 3 with the Browns in there. So that will leave 1 or 2 spots open. Your other spot in the AFC West, or in the AFC East, is between the Patriots and Bills. So it's a race between the Browns, Bills, Raiders. I'll throw the Colts in there as well, but I don't even want to talk about that clown show. But just for the Raiders' sake, a lot of the stuff that they did on Sunday, it's still just new to me because the Gruden offense is predicated. We talked about it going in. How you're going to beat the Chiefs, you cannot beat the Chiefs with dink and dunks. You got to go big with your talented receivers on the outside with Aguilar and Ruggs. And that's exactly what they did. You saw the bombs from Derek Carr. He looked confident out there. That was probably his best game as a pro, at least since 2017, 2016. And just his willingness to really get it up there. Henry Ruggs looks like a stud. He looks like the next coming of Tyreek Hill for this offense. Um, but what concerns me is still their defense. In a game where they looked dominant, they picked off Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes still put up 32 points. Like, slow down on the defenses coming around. They got pressure, but is that more them or the offensive line of the Chiefs? Probably the latter in this one, how it's looked the past few weeks for the Chiefs at least. But I will say the run defense is the worst in the NFL in terms of rushing yards allowed per game. And in the division where, we're seeing Justin Herbert come on, you're going to have to play him twice. And then this Broncos team, which they'll probably beat 2 times, but you're in a significantly tougher division. You're playing a harder schedule. You play the AFC East, or you're getting the Jets, but you still have the Dolphins. You lost to the Patriots and Bills already. So, I mean, that's the Patriots have that head-to-head. So I think it's going to be tough for them to make the playoffs going forward. Still have games against the Buccaneers coming up and against – you already beat the Panthers. So, but I think this team finishes 9-7. But in the AFC this year, I don't think 9-7 gets you into the playoffs.
I'm going to have to say no cap. The Raiders are going to be my surprise team to make it to the playoffs. As it currently stands, they are in. They have the win tie break over Indianapolis based on strength of victory, which is almost double than the Indianapolis Colts. And as the Colts defense statistically, and if you're looking at it, they, just how they play on Sundays, they are the number 1 defense in the NFL, hands down, no question, right? That's a given. But on the other side of the ball, Philip Rivers, like we were saying, the rivers in Indianapolis are dry. I mean, even when Baker Mayfield throws 2 picks to you, just gives you, just hands them to you, gives you like 2 little Christmas presents, you still can't go down and score and, give yourself a lead in that game. Their run game, their offensive line, despite how great they've been for the past couple of years, did not look good. All afternoon, Myles Garrett was, all stopping all over the run game, getting pressure on Philip Rivers. So the Colts, everyone always says defense wins championships, but Philip Rivers, he just has been abysmal so far this season. T.Y. Hilton looking like, he's not going to be doing too well. Michael Pittman Jr., he didn't play too well either. So that offense does not look like it's going to, be able to compete with any team. So that's why I have the Raiders sneaking in. They lost to the Patriots, so like you said, I'll give you credit to that. The Patriots do have the breaker over them, but I just loved how the team played on Sunday. Like if you're playing against the reigning champs, you had every excuse to say, oh well, it's the Chiefs, they're undefeated, they're the Super Bowl champions. Like, well, if we lose, who's gonna really give us any slack on it or any hound us on it? But he went out there, Derek Carr. Just like we said, if they wanted to win, he had to throw deep, and that's exactly what he did. And then on the ground, you rush for almost 150 yards. So the offense looks great. And then you say you gave up 32 points to Patrick Mahomes, but it's Patrick Mahomes, the greatest quarterback we've seen so far in the NFL the past couple of years. And then, so they're looking like a complete team right now. John Gruden looks like he's putting it all together finally in that new stadium that they have. And I think they sneak into the playoffs if, they can just get a couple more wins to beat the New England Patriots.
So I'm looking at their schedule here, and they have a very, those teams that we talked about, the Patriots, Browns, and the Colts that they'll be competing with. They already lost to the Patriots. 2 weeks from now, they play the Browns at Cleveland, which that could be a tough game. And then in December, they host the Colts. So if they don't make the playoffs, that's on them because they had the opportunities to beat these teams and put them away. So it's kind of like you don't have to, as a Raiders fan, at least if they lose these games and miss the playoffs, you'd be like, all right, it was on our own accord. That's on us. But you have an opportunity. If you beat these teams, you make the playoffs, plain and simple, because your other games, you play the Buccaneers next week on Sunday Night Football, which could be a really big game. If they win that one, that's going to be huge for them. But looking at other teams, they still have to play the Chiefs again. You have the Chargers coming up. You have the Dolphins, and you get the Jets, and you get the Broncos twice. So what do we? I mean, 9-7 is like maybe 10-6. I think 10-6 gets you into the playoffs. 9-7, I don't see the Patriots losing 5 more games on their schedule. So it's between those two, and if somehow the Browns fall off towards the end of the season, I think it's a huge prove-it game for the Browns this week. And if they can find a way to beat the Steelers next week, the AFC is now looking like the strongest division of the conference in football in terms of depth. There's a lot of really good teams down there that could cause some of the top dogs in the AFC some really big problems. So, anything else to say for the Las Vegas Raiders?
I think, like you were saying, it's going to come down to, do you beat the Browns? Do you beat the Colts when you need to? Because your destiny is in your own hands right now, John Gruden. Go out there and do it and make me proud, boy.
All right, so let's move on to our next cap or no cap. All right, Laraib, the Tennessee Titans had a huge win, 42-16, scoregami, over the Buffalo Bills on Tuesday Night Football. And after that game, you know what? They're going to get the first round bye in the AFC. They're going to get the 1 seed. Cap or no cap?
Cap, dude. Cap. Are you kidding me? This should go in the overreaction segments because this is, oh my God, overreaction out the wazoo, okay? You play a great game against the Bills, I understand, but we look at the early games, right? On opening week, you win by 2 points to the Broncos. Next week, you win by 3 points to the Jaguars. And the next week, you win by 1 point to the Vikings, okay? So, I mean, how much longer can you keep it up? I mean, we've seen Russell Wilson. He's been great in those one-score games because he just had to be great. But Ryan Tannehill, how much trust do we really put in him for how well he played against the Bills? Tre'Davious White, he was out. Matt Milano, he was out. The Bills defense, they were lacking on who they had out there. And then on the other side, credit where credit's due, right? Tannehill goes out there, all the excuses in the world, use 16 days off. They didn't get to plan or have like that much time in their facility to plan and all that stuff, but they still went out there and they just whooped the Bills on Tuesday Night Football. Props to them. But I don't know, dude, because they have the Texans. They beat them easily, but then there's a stretch where you have to play the Steelers, the Bears, the Colts, the Ravens, the Colts. So I think they have to prove themselves later on down the season if they're really a big-time team. It was a great win against the Bills, who I think are still going to win the AFC despite how they played. I'd really like Josh Allen this season. He kind of came back down to earth on last night. Threw those 2 picks, and they scored 21, or the Titans scored 21 points off turnovers. But I think Josh Allen, he can go back with Sean McDermott. They can regroup and have that defense backed up to full 100% capability and still win the AFC.
Yeah, personally, I think it's cap as well. Statement, but here's my I'm going to phrase it differently. I think in the NFL, we look at what teams prosper towards the end of the season and playoff time, and we saw this last year as well. The Titans are going to be the most dangerous team in the AFC, and here's my reasoning. You look around, you see the NFC champions last year, the San Francisco 49ers. What were they best at? Establishing the run and playing great defense and getting to the quarterback. The Titans picking up Jadeveon Clowney and him just getting more and more integrated with this defense, he is looking like a monster so far. He caused so many, problems for Josh Allen. And like the announcers were saying, he's not even in total game shape yet. They're just putting him in on passing downs and say, run at the quarterback. So there's still more defensive promise for this team. And, we've seen them. They obviously have gotten hit by COVID and praying that no more positive cases arise in that facility with any of the players. So if that can happen and they get some of these players back, Jeffrey Simmons, Corey Davis, Adam Humphries, a lot of other notable starters on this team, they have the formula. Mike Vrabel is great head coach in this league. They have the formula to really be, problems in this AFC. And like we saw last year, make it all the way to the AFC Championship and have a 10-point lead on the Chiefs at Kansas City. And like you said, there's a very important 5-game stretch for them where it's Bears, Colts twice, Titans, and Browns, where show us where your money is. You don't have any more breaks this season. No more. It's just straight ahead from here. You already had your bye week 3. As unfortunate as that may sound, you kind of caused it on your own, Tennessee, so you can't really complain about it. But it's all straight from here. So make sure you eat your Wheaties and getting a lot of sleep at night because you're not getting a lot of rest. So that's the defining stretch, and they also play the Packers. I just think there's too many tough games towards the end of the schedule that they'll probably drop. So I don't think they're going to win the number 1 seed in the AFC when you have just teams like Baltimore and Kansas City who have a lot more favorable schedules going forward. But what I've seen from Tennessee so far, I like a lot. Yeah, those early games, they only won by this and that, but they won. Give it to them. A win is a win, no matter how ugly. We talked about this with the Saints and Seahawks, who just keep finding ways to pull games out of their asses. And if the Titans can keep doing that with the formula they've established with this team, they're the most dangerous team in the AFC.
Well, I'll give you one thing. The Tennessee Titans, I think they will win the AFC South. Their defense has played all right enough, and then Ryan Tannehill, he's played pretty good, and then they have Derrick Henry. So just like you said, if you get later on to the season, you get into the colder months. What does everyone talk about? Running the ball. It's freezing cold. No one wants to tackle 6'3", 250-pound Derrick Henry when it's 20 degrees outside. So that's what makes this Tennessee Titans team very dangerous. And, they're still vying to make a nice playoff run this year, a nice complete whole team with Mike Vrabel at the helm. So, I think they're a very solid team, and they're undefeated. So credit to them. They're number 1 right now in the AFC standings for the playoffs currently, but I see them dropping down to maybe, I don't know, like maybe the 4th seed.
I don't know about that one. I think they.
Okay, well let's look at it real quick. So, who do you think is going to win the AFC?
I still think Baltimore. I think as a regular season team, they're just dominant.
Right. So Baltimore, then Kansas City, right?
I guess.
Okay, and then Buffalo.
No.
No, not okay. What about Pittsburgh?
Pittsburgh? No, Baltimore's gonna win the division. What are you talking about?
Oh yeah. So I guess Tennessee. I think the Bills. Well, first of all, I think the Bills will win the AFC. So for me, it would be Buffalo, then Baltimore, and then Kansas City, and then Tennessee at the 4.
Well, Buffalo's a whole different topic with how Josh Allen looked last night, but we're not going to get to that. I think, regardless of if they're the 3rd seed or the 4th seed, they're going to host a playoff game. And like you said, freezing cold weather playoffs. I still like, because there's no other team in the AFC. I guess the Colts and the Steelers have good defenses, but I like the offensive identity of this Titans team so much more, and I trust them in a playoff setting where I haven't seen Big Ben in the playoffs in at least 3 years. And then in terms of the other teams, like the Browns and the Colts, don't even get me started. But
the rivers are dry, people. The rivers are dry.
Put that to memory. He needs to retire. Don't even get us started with Andrew Luck, or we're gonna cry. But no, I still think this team has the most promise in the division with the great running game and the improving defense. So, yeah, give me the Titans making the most noise in the AFC. And if I get a little too frisky, I might pick them to win it. But okay. I'm gonna give it to you now.
Okay, so let's move on a little bit, broader scope right here. But cap or no cap, Matt Ryan will not be the starting quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons next season.
It's going to be cap, and here's why. Because we saw what, Arthur Blank's comments were kind of unsure about Matt Ryan's future in Atlanta. And, if you watch the game on Sunday, you saw Matt Ryan just threw a really bad pick in the red zone, and he did not look that sharp or efficient. And you're bringing in a new coach and a new GM next season. And I just think whenever you bring in a new coach and a new GM, it's the whole franchise has to start over. And there's three core pieces to a team if you're building a new team: coach, quarterback, GM. And I feel like you got to bring in all those parts together and let the coach and the new GM pick their quarterback. If they're satisfied with Matt Ryan and they think they can have a chance to contend with Matt Ryan, then you stick with them. But a lot of our football fans, as we've seen recently, we just don't think Matt Ryan is the type of quarterback that can, win you a Super Bowl as, he tried to in 2016. This league is changing quickly. It's favoring escapability, getting out of the pocket. It's favoring younger quarterbacks. But the reason why, despite all of that, I think that he will remain the quarterback going into next season is going because I don't think they're going to have the number one overall pick. If they somehow get the number one overall pick and have Trevor Lawrence sitting in their laps, there's no way they pass that up. Now, if it's like a Justin Fields or Trey Lance, it depends on what your team thinks about them. They're highly talented, but they're definitely not a home run like a Trevor Lawrence is. So, you could just say, keep Matt Ryan for the next season. We're going to draft a high offensive lineman or defensive piece for us. But my biggest concern for the Matt Ryan situation and potentially replacing him is with COVID season and the salary cap probably going to go down, teams definitely wanting to stay away from going into the luxury. Matt Ryan's going to be a huge cap hit next season. Now, he's going to be off the books the season after that. So then that's when you can start looking to try to move Matt Ryan around, potentially trade him. But I think the only way you get rid of Matt Ryan this offseason is via trade. But who would really want Matt Ryan? Are the Colts going to be the team that's just going to recycle old quarterbacks until they finally find the one that splashes? Potentially. But overall, I think Matt Ryan, his days are limited in Atlanta, but he will be the starter next season.
I'm going to have to go with no cap. Matt Ryan will not be the starting quarterback. So far, the Atlanta Falcons are 0-5, and Matt Ryan has not done anything to prove to me that he can, go out there and win a game despite who he's playing on Sunday.
Matty Ice.
Yeah, Matty Ice or Matty Hot blank. I'll leave it at that. But no, this team has not been playing very good, or it's not been playing good at all. And if they keep on going down this path, you said they take a hit with Matt Ryan to the cap, but this is no cap right here because if he plays so bad, they're going to have to let him go, or they have to draft someone and just start him right away, depending on how bad they play. Like you're saying, if you get a new head coach, a new GM, you're going to want a new culture, and then new GM is going to want his own guy to be in there and be like, yeah, I drafted this kid, and he's going to be the new face of the franchise. So I think if they draft someone or they just let Matt Ryan go, I think Matt Ryan will not be there next season.
Yeah, I think a plan for them potentially, if they like a guy and what they have, they could keep Matt Ryan, sign the rookie quarterback, and kind of have him go under Matt Ryan for a year. And then once Matty Ice's contract is up, throw him out, and then you go in with the new starter because next season, if you don't improve that offensive line or that defense, you're going to see a Joe Burrow in Cincinnati season for that new quarterback. So maybe the play is to keep Matt Ryan, even if they get Trevor Lawrence. They probably keep him if they can't trade him. Let Matt Ryan start the season, and then if Trevor Lawrence can come off the bench towards the end of the season or maybe in a game where they're getting blown out or potentially blowing someone out, you never know. They could put Lawrence in, but I mean, they have a lot of options here going forward, but I think the day one starter for the 2021 Atlanta Falcons will be Matt Ryan.
I'll tell you one thing the Falcons do need to do is to get a new strength and conditioning coach. All their players, especially on the defensive side, they have glass bones. Like eventually you and I might have to go out there and start playing safety. Seeing how many injuries they've had so far this season. But I think you have one last cap or no cap question for me.
All right, Laraib. So, speaking of next season and the draft, Trevor Lawrence, I say right now, you go ahead, you already, buy your mansion in New York with all that Clemson money that you don't have, and you go ahead and you say, I will be playing in New York next season because either the Giants or the Jets, they have the number one overall pick. I'll be playing in the Big Apple. Cap or no cap?
I think that is no cap. I think the Jets are going to draft that boy Trevor Lawrence so far this season. They're looking like they could be 0-16. They just let Le'Veon Bell go last night, breaking news. They don't have anything to look forward to at all. Like, you lost Jamal Adams at the offseason. You lose Le'Veon Bell. Now it's just up to Sam Darnold and Jamison Crowder and what they can do on the offensive side. And then on defense, C.J. Mosley, he sat out this season due to COVID. I mean, you have some playmakers and Leonard Williams, but besides that, I mean, no one really who stands out. Definitely the worst team in the league with the worst plus-minus differential. Nothing to look forward to except for Trevor Lawrence this season.
Yeah, I mean, for both the teams, they drafted young quarterbacks in recent years, especially with Daniel Jones just 2 years ago. But with the prospect of Lawrence with just the cannon arm, it seems like he has no real weaknesses as a quarterback so far. Now, as a football fan, do I want him in New York? Absolutely not. If there's some way a team like Denver can fall to the number one overall pick and scoop up Trevor Lawrence, that is my dream come true. But I don't think that's going to happen because I think one of these teams is going to finish the season 0-16 and mail it in because, frankly, if you can get Trevor Lawrence, that's it. That you go for it. And if I'm the Jets and the Giants get the number one overall pick, then I'm saying to myself, what can I give up to get him? Because, I mean, do you trust Sam Darnold going forward? Or maybe you could also pose the scenario in which these teams trust their quarterbacks. They haven't liked the talent around them. Who knows the futures of Joe Douglas and Adam Gase. Adam Gase should be fired as soon as possible. Jets, why is he still there? I don't get it. Maybe you're keeping him there because you want Trevor Lawrence. Maybe it's a chess move by Joe Douglas saying Adam Gase is such an inept coach that it's going to work to our advantage and helping us get Trevor. But here's the scenario. So if you trust these quarterbacks and just think you need talent around them, do you think about maybe trading Trevor Lawrence or that number one overall draft pick? And you're going to get a king's ransom from whatever team. Let's say Carolina Panthers say, we're going to give you this year's first, next year's first, and 2 or 3 second-round picks in the future. That's a great deal right there for Trevor Lawrence. I mean, but that's if you have trust in your guy right now. And I personally think that regardless, there's 29 teams in the league, maybe 28 teams in the NFL that if they had the number one overall pick would not take Trevor Lawrence. And that's the Seattle Seahawks and the Kansas City Chiefs. Every other team would take him in a heartbeat.
Well, if these teams had any, if the Jets and the Giants, if they were anything else than a poverty franchise, then maybe they would trade their first overall pick to get, a great haul, like you were saying, get someone on the offensive line who can protect your quarterback, get some offensive weapons, for Sam Darnold to throw to, get some defensive players to keep you in these tight games. But no, they're going to do what teams have been doing for the past couple years or, forever. They're going to take the big, shiny new toy, Trevor Lawrence, get their ticket sales up, get their jersey sales up, and remain a, crappy team unless Trevor Lawrence comes out to be, someone who's just absolute monster as a rookie.
Yeah, that's a concern. Just the situation. We see what happens to players in certain situations. I mean, for example, Chase Claypool, if he doesn't go to the Steelers, he's probably going to be a third string tight end on the Cleveland Browns or the Bengals. Like, it's all about situation. And we see quarterbacks, like let's look at the two rookies this year that are playing, Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's getting slaughtered every single week behind that offensive line, and he's just running for his life, having to make plays out of his ass. And Justin Herbert, more structure around him, better defense, better offensive line, despite they're missing a few pieces. I mean, like they have a solid situation there in Los Angeles for Justin Herbert. So, I mean, if Joe Burrow gets drafted there and Justin Herbert goes to Cincinnati, it's a whole different situation probably. So that's why you look back at like draft busts, you always have to take it with a grain of salt because the situation, if it was different, like if Sam Darnold went to Buffalo and Josh Allen went to the Jets, are we having a different conversation here?
Yeah, I think so.
It's a compelling thing to think about, but the Jets, certainly they need their guy. Like, they're not going to be like, oh, we're the Jets. Let's not ruin another quarterback's future. Like, obviously they're going to take him. But that starts with a new head coach, new GM. Let's see what you got, Jets. All right. That did you have another thing for Cap?
So I think that's gonna wrap up the cap or no cap segment. But one last quick thing before we go, we will do our top 5 rankings. So Lewis, would you like to start us off with should we go bottom up or should we go top down?
Let's go bottom up for the sake of suspense, even though the top 3 or 2 are not that surprising. But my number 5 team is the Baltimore Ravens.
Oh, wow.
2 impressive wins in a row after the loss against the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday Night Football. It's just kind of like with the Ravens, you get what you expect against they are the kings of destroying bad teams. They will not leave anything up to doubt. If there's a 12-point spread, they're going to win by 15. Like they know how to take care of business and put teams the way that they should. Frankly, that game should have been a shutout if it wasn't for a defensive pass interference that put the Bengals in the field goal range. And at least they were like, hey, we scored 3 points. Whoopee, we didn't get shut out. But no, I think this team, they're getting better defensively week by week by week. Patrick Queen with another great defensive play, forced fumble and a fumble recovery for a touchdown. Loving him, loving that defense in general. I'm still concerned about the pass rush. They got 7 sacks on Joe Burrow. Whoopee, any average defensive line can get 7 sacks on Joe Burrow. What I'm looking for is consistent play up front, and I need to see Lamar improve as a pocket passer. And even in these 2 blowout games, he hasn't looked great throwing the ball down the field. Now, his receivers aren't really doing him much justice. Marquise Brown finally had a breakout game, 77 yards and touchdown on Sunday. But he needs to get that going. They need to bring out all the stops, trick plays, get him out of the pocket, make him the athlete that he is. But in this early stretch of teams that you probably know you're going to beat, avoid those hits. Like, you don't need to be taking massive hits that could jeopardize your play going into the playoffs. But, yeah, I have the Ravens at my number 5 spot.
Yeah, it was kind of surprising to see Lamar Jackson only 180 passing yards against the Bengals, but they did have 161 rushing on the ground. So most of that game, they were just taking the air out of the ball, milking the clock. But for my number 5 spot, I'm going with the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers at 4-0. We would have watched them play last week against a great Titans team, and that would have been a great game to watch. But, they play who they play, and they're 4-0. Surprising, how close that game was against the Eagles. But their defense, despite how well Travis Fulgham played and how well Miles Sanders played, Miles Sanders, he would not have done as great as he did if it wasn't for that long 74-yard touchdown that he had in the first half of that game. Very lucky for him. But it looks like Ben Roethlisberger is able to put everything back together how it used to be. Juju Smith-Schuster, he didn't play as well as he thought, but Chase Claypool looks like they have a solid another wide receiver in Pittsburgh. No surprise there. They just breed them wide receivers in Pittsburgh. But solid offense. We know how great that defense is. A little surprising how much they gave up, like I said, but still a great unit and a great team overall with a great head coach.
Yeah, I don't have Pittsburgh in my top 5, but they're definitely on one of those on the hedge teams for me. My biggest concern with this team is the secondary. They're giving up way too many big plays every single week. And this front seven is so dominant, stopping the run and getting to the passer on, third and longs. But I mean, in quick passing game, and like you said, the long ball to Travis Fulgham, he was making the Pittsburgh defense look silly, and that's just unacceptable. I mean, if this team wants to go far, you need to have your horses with and your back end, and I just don't think they're that sharp yet. They can improve. But like you said, the offense is looking like it's really starting to click now. Their first game with over 30 points this season against a pretty good Eagles defense. We saw them cause a lot of problems for the 49ers the week before. Chase Claypool came on as another dominant receiver. And just the receivers they have on the outside, I like the running attack with Snell and Connor. So, yeah, I like how this team's going, but not my top 5 team. My number 4 team, on the other hand, is the Tennessee Titans, who they should have played in week 3. But, you play who you play. Tennessee Titans with a massive win against a team who was in both of our top 5s when we did this last week. 42-16 win. You're missing pieces. COVID is like you haven't been able to practice like at all in your facility, and you still come out and beat that team that a lot of people were saying could represent the AFC, including my partner here. And you beat them by 26 points, 3 turnovers, 21 points off of turnovers. Ryan Tannehill looked efficient as ever. It seems like he's mastered the offensive game plan. The Titans are 13-4 since Ryan Tannehill took over as the starter for this team, including a win over the Chiefs and the Ravens. So no other team in that span has beaten both of those teams. So yeah, I love what I've seen so far. They get the Texans next week. That's going to be another dub for them. But like we said earlier, no more breaks here, Titans. It's a straight path. You control your own destiny. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, this is a solid number 4 spot for you. We talked about how close those earlier games were, but a solid victory for them. All excuses, like we were saying, in the world for them. But, a very scary team going down, but it's all going to come down to attrition. You have 13 straight games to go, 12, what is it? No, you have 12 more games straight in a row, no more bye weeks. This is it. You got to put it all on the line if you're going to make the playoffs. And then, it's going to all come down to their last couple or, stretch of games that they have in the middle of the season. Can they beat those, middle of the pack teams in the AFC and secure, where they're going to be for this playoffs? But for my number 4, I have the Kansas City Chiefs at my number 4 spot. I have them below the Ravens just because of how bad they're playing in the past 2 weeks. I think if they play against the Patriots, 2 weeks ago, and Cam Newton is playing, I think the Chiefs lose that game. Patrick Mahomes has not looked as sharp as we've expected him to be. And then we saw him against the Raiders. He threw that costly pick on that drive where he could have, had another comeback win from behind. But he hasn't looked like he's able to hit his targets. Kind of seems like people have started to figure out, like, he's going to go this way and throw the ball that way a little bit more, expected out of him. And then Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he had a great week 1, but since then really hasn't been, nothing too crazy that we expected out of him. And that defense giving up, however many points to the Raiders and not really making those key turnover plays like that they need to. We saw Patrick Mahomes on the sideline and, he's talking to himself and he's looking at the Raiders guy running right down the field. He's saying, wow, he's wide open. Oh my God, Patrick Mahomes, he was not pleased with how that defense played on Sunday. And, if this team is overall from head to toe, it looks like it's one of the better teams in the entire NFL, right? But if you want to win, you have to put everything together and you have to be consistently good. You can't be overzealous, over prideful. You're Super Bowl champs, but every year is a new year. Any moment someone could go down. Any moment another team can just have a great week, and you just have to be prepared all the time. You can't be this, overzealous, like I said.
Yeah, I mean, for that point, against the Raiders, you're coming off a really close win against the Patriots on a short week. Quick turnaround to face the Raiders at home, and kudos to the Raiders for having a great game plan. And that's one of those games where the Raiders go up early and the Chiefs really could just like mail it in if they wanted to. And they did, it was an 8-point game late in the fourth quarter. And, Derek Carr just, it was a fourth down. And if they don't convert there, Patrick Mahomes has a chance to get the ball and go back and potentially score and tie up the game. I mean, we saw what happened in the Seahawks game. It's a tale of two stories. If they don't convert, you're putting the ball in Russell Wilson or Patrick Mahomes' hands. We know what's going to happen in the end. It's just about the defense getting that stop. And you know what? No Chris Jones on Sunday. He will be returning next week. Maybe if they have Chris Jones there, Derek Carr does not get that sneaker off to convert that fourth down. So that's one big thing I'll look at. I'm not too concerned about this team. They are my number 3 team as I'm talking about them at the moment. I think their defense is on the same page. Yeah, they gave up the big play. I think just scouting up on that team, at least if I was a defensive back playing against Derek Carr, I'd probably, wouldn't play my receivers way too deep. But, you're a defensive back. That's your job. I'm not going to give them any excuses for that. But I think this is a game that you just drop. I'm not too concerned about the defense going forward. I think the offensive game plan, you need to find more consistency in the running game. Maybe bring in a Le'Veon Bell. I don't know. But it seems like they need a strong workhorse back. I think Clyde Edwards is a good scat back, third down guy, great in the passing game. But if you're giving him the ball on 1st and 10 and expecting him to break off a 7-yard run, it's not that feasible. So, yeah, they need to involve the running game more. And, I'm watching that game. Remember in week 1 against the Ravens or against the Texans and in the Ravens game, they had all this clever short pass design, getting Travis Kelce on a screen pass and, wide receiver screens, all the Tyreek Hill reverses and end arounds. I need to see more of that in games like this where it just seems like you think Patrick Mahomes can just bail you out with a deep ball whenever he pleases. But, they need to get more involved in the short game. Patrick Mahomes, he's really good in that area. He can be surgical. He can put balls in tight windows. And this Chiefs offense, you can settle for the 6-yard games. Chew the clock. If you're playing against good offense, you need to realize getting them off the field is almost as important as you scoring. So you don't need to go for the long ball every single drive and put your defense in positions where it has to keep going back on the field and just getting exhausted. But these are all very fixable issues, and they have a very favorable schedule coming up. So no need to panic for Chiefs fans.
Yep. So you had the Ravens at the number 5, but I have Ravens at my number 3. We talked about them a little bit already, but I think the Ravens have a really good regular season team where they just beat whoever is on their schedule. Every single time that they're going to be the favorite to win. They're most likely going to win, except for on Monday night when they play the Chiefs. But if they're playing against a sorry team, like you said, they're going to beat them no matter what, on the spread. But I have them number 3 above the Chiefs just because I just like how much more, that run game is able to take the air out of the ball, milk the clock a lot easier. And that defense, despite the troubles that they've had in the past couple of weeks, I just think they're 100 times better than anything that the Chiefs are going to put together this season.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Ravens to win the AFC. I think they're just a dominant AFC team in general, just beating out the regular season. But it comes down to the playoffs. Like regular season rankings are great and all, but the Ravens know what they need to do going forward. And if they can't beat that Chiefs team, it's going to be problems. But I think we have the same 2 for our top 2. I have the Packers 1, Seahawks 2. I'll start with the Seahawks. Ugly win on Sunday Night Football. But you know what? As we say, a win is a win. No matter how you do it, no matter how you get it, win is a win. They were dominated in time of possession. It was almost a 10-minute difference. Just getting absolutely gouged in the running game. You caught a break there, Dalvin Cook catching a hammy, because if he's in on that 4th and 1, I think he finds that hole. I think Alexander Madison really bailed the Seahawks out on that one. But, Jaron Reed was playing fantastic all game. we slander this defense a lot because of the yards they give up, but watching these games, we talk about they seem like they always come up with the timely interception, the timely turnover, or it's a fourth down stop they get to put their offense back on the field. I don't think the defense is as bad as we make it out to be. I think they're just not that talented. But in terms of those big situations where they need to come up big, they certainly do. So credit to them for keeping putting their offense in a position to win, because that's definitely the strength of this team. Probably one of the best, probably the second best offense in football. We're about to get to the best offense in football. But, DK Metcalf is looking like a solid number one wide receiver. And then opposed to him is Tyler Lockett, who, didn't have a great game against the Vikings, but we saw 2 weeks ago against the Patriots had 3 touchdowns. So
Cowboys.
Excuse me. Yeah, Cowboys. So it's pick your poison with those 2 weapons. You also have David Moore, Chris Carson out of the backfield, Will Dissly, Hollister. I mean, you have all these pieces, and then they all are getting the ball thrown to them by the league MVP, Russell Wilson, who has looked extremely impressive this season. He didn't have a great start to the game in the first half against the Vikings, just not being able to find a lot downfield. But in the third quarter, you have a stretch of 10 minutes in real time, not even in game time. 10 minutes, I'm just on my phone, on TikTok, maybe I go to the bathroom. I come back and the Seahawks score 21 straight points. Just that, the ability of an offense to have that quick strike ability and turn a 13-point deficit into an 8-point lead just like that is outstanding. So that's why I think this team, they can take them as high as the offense will let them. But some of the defense personnel isn't great. But I trust the defense of the number 1 team a little bit more. That's why I have the Seahawks at 2.
Yeah, so you're talking about how they scored 21 points in 10 minutes in real life. Well, in game time, that actually equated to 1 minute and 53 seconds. So if you can score 21 points in a minute and 53 seconds, I mean, that is absolutely absurd. But that defense, they will be getting Jamal Adams back this week, hopefully. And then Quentin Dunbar and all the rest of them injured players, they will be good to go, hopefully, in the coming weeks. Jordan Brooks, their rookie linebacker, hopefully he'll be ready to go in the next couple of weeks as well. But, if you give Russell Wilson the ball in, 2-minute drive, you don't have any timeouts. You have to go down the length of the field, 96-yard drive. And you go out there and you score the touchdown, convert on 2 fourth and longs on that drive to win. DK Metcalf looking like, a lot of people saying he's the new Megatron in the league. And, maybe they're right. He looked like he was feasting on –
Russell Wilson thinks he's Jerry Rice, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, DK Metcalf is second year, and he's looking like an absolute stud so far. But the question on this team is most definitely the defense, like we said. We give them, we give them a lot of slack, or not a lot. We give them a lot of flack, on how they play. But when they need to, they come up big. Cam Newton on that one, or on the 2-yard line, Alexander Madison other night, and then they get some key picks on Ryan Tannehill in that game. But overall, a solid team, and they're definitely going for the number 1 spot in the NFC. But right now, the number 1 team in the whole NFL is the Green Bay Packers. Aaron Rodgers, he is also in the MVP conversation. He's getting back to Devontae Adams this week, hopefully. And then with Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams in the backfield and AJ Dillon?
AJ Dillon.
Yeah, AJ Dillon, the rookie running back. So he has another trio-headed running back along with Devontae Adams. Like I said, Alan Lazard, he had core surgery. We don't know when he's going to be back, but Marquez Valdez-Scantling is also a great wide receiver number 2, along with Robert Tonyan. So the offense looks very, very good with a lot of pieces. And then on the other side, that defense, we know Adrian Amos, the Smith brothers, just a lot of playmakers all over the field, and that's why I have them above the Seahawks.
Yeah, it's like, I echo everything you just said. The offense is so multiple in what they can do in the running game and the passing game, and even getting the running game involved with the passing game in so many different levels. And then the defense, like you said, playmakers, Smith brothers, Jair Alexander, Amos. We thought losing Blake Martinez would hurt in the running game, and that's my only concern with this team. The run defense so far this season has not been great, but what you're if you compare what they're getting from their run offense, it's something you can look over. But if you're facing a team like we saw in the Saints game, they were getting pushed around up front. And hopefully they just had their bye week, coming off the bye, going in to the rest of their schedule, which is very favorable, as I should say. This next game coming up is going to be probably their biggest test going forward outside of just the divisional games against the Bears, Vikings. But this is going to be a big game for them. We're going to see strength on strength, good running offense against a great run defense. Let's see if Aaron Rodgers can, expose that Tampa Bay defense, and then old Tom Brady on the other end trying to get past this Packers defense. I think it's going to be a really good game. Everyone's eyes are going to be on it. But, yeah, I like the Packers in that game, and then the rest of the season, they're going to be favored in every single matchup. I mean, you have the 49ers, but, you look at it, Texans, Vikings, Jaguars, Colts, Bears, Eagles, Lions, Panthers. Good middle of the pack teams, but they have a chance to go 14-2 or 15-1. I think they're going to get the number one seed, and number one seed, Lambeau, it's deadly. So you don't want to be a team having to go up there in the frozen tundra to face Aaron Rodgers and potentially come up short. So Packers are our number one teams. Any other words on the Packers?
No, just a very well put together team with Matt LaFleur at the head coach position, looking like Aaron Rodgers might go and get another Super Bowl ring this year.
Definitely. So before we go, I just want to throw a few teams that could potentially crack our top five, depending on what can happen next week. The winner of the Steelers-Browns game is going to be looking like a real contender going forward. So that's going to be a huge game to determine what the AFC North or the AFC playoff picture is going to look like. The winner of Bills-Chiefs, if the Bills can come back off a disappointing loss on a short week and defeat the Kansas City Chiefs, they could move back into our top five, and maybe the Kansas City Chiefs fall out of our top five. And Packs Buccaneers, maybe the Buccaneers come off with a big upset and they can, make some noise in that top five as well. A lot that can go on, a lot that can happen. We'll be with you for our predictions episode tomorrow so we can break down those games. Laraib, anything else?
No, unfortunately, there will be no Thursday night game this week, so no, early prediction from us. But I think that will do it for today's episode, Lewis.
Yep, that'll do it. We look forward to seeing all of you on Friday for our next podcast. This one will be dropping very shortly. If you made it this far, hit me up with a palm tree emoji on any platform you can find me. Palm tree emoji, and you'll get something special.
If you text me a picture or on any social media, send me a picture of John Gruden, I will send you $5 on Venmo or something like that. I don't know. But thank you all for watching if you made it this far, and I hope you have a great day.